Ordering the extra guac or financing those Gucci shoes is a pretty obvious way to stay broke. But there's a lot of people who are not doing that but still don't feel wealthy. That's why in this video I want to go over 7.5 wealth killers that hold so many people back from building wealth without you even knowing it. Raise your hand if you know somebody who loves bragging about their credit score. I see you. Let me tell you a little secret about your 800 credit score. It gives you zero indication of how wealthy you are. Here's a fun fact. The FICO credit score system was not created until 1989, and it was created as a way for banks to lend you more money. Your credit score doesn't show you how wealthy you are. It doesn't give you an indication of how much money you have. It doesn't show you how rich you're going to be. It shows you how good you are at paying back your debts, and it doesn't always do a good job at that. Now I know what you're thinking. But Jaspreet, I need a good credit score to buy a car. No, you don't. Buy that car with cash. Now listen to me carefully. I'm not saying your credit score doesn't matter, because if you have a better credit score, you can qualify for a lower mortgage. But what I'm trying to say is you have a lot of people and you have an entire industry out there selling you that this credit score is how you get rich, that you need a better credit score to build wealth. So then you have a lot of people spending recklessly because some random person on the internet says that you need a better credit score to qualify for more debt, that way you can build wealth, when in reality, debt does not equal wealth. And if you really want to build wealth, you have to break out of just understanding this credit score game, because the reality is I want you to build true wealth, not just have a whole bunch of debt. Can you use debt to buy assets to build wealth? Sure, but the people that are bragging about their credit score are not doing that. Wealth killer number 2 is your car payment. Cars are expensive, and to help you feel a little bit more comfortable buying a car that you can't afford with an extremely high car payment, car dealerships have gotten creative. Take a look.
Hey sir, what is your car payment?
Mine is $1,325.
And what kind of vehicle is that?
It's a 22 Ford Raptor.
Okay. You have another payment?
I do, actually. My wife's, hers is $1,000. It's a 22 Ford Expedition.
Perfect. Hey ma'am, what is your car payment?
$1,386.
That was a car dealership where the car sales experts were bragging about their expensive car payments, so you don't have to feel so bad getting an $800 or $1,200 a month car payment. I mean, we're at the point where $1,000 a month for a car payment is pretty much normal, and this trend does not look like it's slowing down anytime soon. Now, we've been covering the story in Market Briefs, which is my free financial newsletter, but there's 3 problems with you financing your car. Number 1, you are buying a depreciating liability. Number 2, it has a limited lifespan. And then number 3, you're paying interest on top of that. Your car is a depreciating liability. It is not an asset, as much as your accountant might want to say that. What that means is if you go out and you buy this new $40,000 car today, as soon as you put the keys in the ignition, that car starts to lose value. After 1 year, that liability, this car, is going to drop down to $32,000, assuming that you take care of your car. After 2 years, it's going to be worth $28,000. After 3 years, it's going to be worth $25,000, and it's going to continue dropping from there. That's not an asset. An asset is something that's going to put money in your pocket, and if this car is losing value year after year after year, it is definitely not an asset. We know that your car is going to lose value. But that's just part number 1. Part number 2 is it has a limited time span. Now maybe if you go and buy a Toyota, you buy a Honda, it can last you 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, which is nice. But there's a lifespan that your car has. It can't run forever. If you go out and buy a house today, it could last you 100 years. It can last you your entire lifespan, but your car, well, it won't. And that's where you gotta remember, your car is gonna die eventually, which means you're gonna have to buy another car to keep driving. And then number 3, you wanna pay interest on top of that. So that means, number 1, you're gonna buy a car that's losing value, then you're gonna pay interest on top of that, and then you're gonna have to buy another one of these things to continue having a vehicle to get places. That's why it is a losing transaction to finance your car. That's why I would rather you buy your car with cash. That way you can buy a car that you can afford. Now you're gonna say, well, Jaspreet, I don't have $40,000 to go out and buy a brand new car. You're right, but you put down $8,000 to go out and finance this $40,000 car. If you take that $8,000, instead of using it on this car and use it to go out and buy an $8,000 car with cash, yeah, maybe it's not gonna be as nice as this car, but the $8,000 can buy you a used Toyota Corolla, maybe a used Toyota Camry, depending on where you're looking. I get it, it's not as nice, but now you can keep that $800 a month in your pocket. And then you can take the $800 a month and save it. You can use the $800 a month and invest it. You can use the $800 a month and make yourself rich. And then you're also going to save money on the insurance, because when you drive a nicer car, your insurance is more expensive. And then if you went out and you brought a foreign car, an exotic car, you also got to pay for the premium gas. It's almost weird to me when somebody goes out and buys a Benz or a Jag or a BMW, and then they start complaining about the price of premium gas. If you're buying a premium car, gas prices should not be your worry. And so if you want to build wealth, you got to drive a car that you can afford. And we live in a culture where it's very normal to drive a car that you can't afford because everybody does it. Everybody tells you that's normal. But if you want to break out of the system, you got to stop spending that money on your car and put that money back in your pocket. And then once you build your wealth, go out and buy the Benz, go out and buy the BMW, buy 2 of them for all I care, because now you can afford it. And as a quick reminder, if you want to stay up to date on what's happening in the financial markets, my team at Briefs Media publishes a free newsletter called Market Briefs every day, where we publish what's happening in the economy, the stock market, the housing market, the crypto market, and the global economy into a fun and witty and easy to read newsletter. It's completely free. We have hundreds of thousands of investors that are reading Market Briefs every morning. So if you want to join, it's free. And I got the link for you to join down in the description below. Wealth killer number 3, buy a house that you can't afford. Everybody says that you need to buy a house, that way you can build your wealth and start building generational wealth. Yet most home buyers today have regrets when they go out and buy a home, because many people are buying houses that they can't afford. Now, for full transparency, I became a licensed realtor back when I was 20. And the way that you're trained to sell a house as a realtor is you're not selling a house, you're selling a home. And you're not just selling a home, you're selling people the biggest investment of their life. And when I can tell you that you're going out and buying the biggest and best investment of your life, and it's a home for your family, it's a little bit easier to buy a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer, a little bit larger. And it's the same thing with the banks that are lending you the money. They're paid on commission. They want you to buy something bigger and nicer and grander because it is a big home. It is a big investment. It is an investment in your future. It's an investment in your family, which makes you feel a little bit more comfortable to spend a little bit outside of what you're comfortable spending. But this is where you got to remember, your house is not going to make you rich. Your house is where you live. Now, can your house make you money? Sure. Can your house lose you money? Absolutely. We remember what happened during the 2008 crash. So when I think about buying a house, for me, a house is a liability. I want to buy a house that I can afford when I can afford it. And if I can't afford it, I want to wait until I can afford to buy that house, because you have a lot of hidden expenses when you have to go out and buy the house, especially when you buy a house that you can afford. Because now when you buy the house, you got to pay for the insurance. When you buy that house, well, now when the roof breaks, you got to pay for it. When the window breaks, you got to pay for it. When the furnace goes down, it's up to you. When you have these issues in your rental, well, it's up to your landlord to fix those costs. Now, this is where I want to make sure you're hearing what I'm saying very clearly, because a lot of people like to misconstrue what I'm saying. But I'm not saying it's bad for you to buy a house. It's actually good to buy a house. I want you to be a homeowner. I just want you to own your home when you can afford it, because there is a problem. There's a major problem when you have people buying houses that they can't afford. In fact, let me read you what George Bush said back around 2003. This administration, the White House, will consistently strive to promote an ownership society in America. We want more people owning their home. It is in our national interest to make more people own their own home. After all, if you own your own home, you have a vital stake in the future of our country. For context, if you don't remember, in the early 2000s, there was a big push for everybody to be a homeowner in America, because everybody talked about how homeownership is the key to building wealth in America, and everybody's going to get rich by owning a home. And so it was very much encouraged for everybody to own a home, even if you can't afford it. Buy a home you can't afford because you're going to get rich anyways. And then that ultimately led to the 2008 housing market collapse, where a lot of people lost a lot, or everything. And so this is where, again, I'm not against you buying a house. I am against you buying a house you can't afford. Buy a house when you can afford it. Don't buy a house when you can't. And when you buy that home, make sure you still have money to invest. Make sure you still have money to save. That way you can continue building your real wealth, because your real wealth is not going to be built through your house. It's going to be built through your investments, through your business, through your real estate rental properties, through your stock market investments. That's where the wealth is built. Your home is where you buy memories. The fourth wealth killer that so many people ignore is Netflix. And no, I'm not talking about your $15 a month subscription fee. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American is watching more than 2 hours of television a day. It's actually closer to 3 hours of television a day, but I'm going to round down to 2 hours of television or Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime time a day. There are 365 days in a year. What does that mean? That means the average person is watching 730 hours of TV over the course of 1 year. Over the course of the next decade, you're gonna watch about 7,300 hours of television time. So when we talk about, I don't have time to learn how to manage my money, I don't have time to earn some extra money, I don't have time to learn how to invest my money, I don't have time to start a business. Over the next 10 years, you're gonna have thousands of hours thrown away watching Netflix. Over the next 12 months, you're gonna have hundreds of hours thrown away just watching Netflix. And by the way, just to put this in context, 730 hours of TV time over the next year is more than 30 days, 30 24-hour days of TV over the next 12 months. This is not 8-hour days. I'm talking about 30 days of 24 hours a day being spent watching just Netflix. 1 month a year is being spent purely consuming TV. What if you could have an entire month of time back? And by month, again, I'm not talking about 8-hour days. I mean 30 24-hour days. There you go, right there. And you're gonna say, well, Jaspreet, I need a time to unwind, I need a time to relax. Yeah, relax when you have the wealth. But if you're broke, if you're struggling with money, if you don't know how you're gonna pay your bills, this is not the time to be relaxing. This is the time to figure out how do you actually build your wealth. Wealth killer number 5 is buying luxury before assets. Now, I'm not saying buying luxury you can't afford. I'm not saying financing the Gucci, because that's obvious. I'm talking about buying the luxury before your assets. If you have $10,000 in your bank account, pretty much everybody would say that you can afford a $10,000 Rolex. If you have $50,000 in your bank account, pretty much everybody would say that you can afford a $50,000 BMW. But here's the thing, these things are luxury. And when we're talking about buying luxury, I want you to really be able to afford them, which means own the assets before you own that luxury. Which means if you want to buy a $10,000 Rolex, great. You got to first have the cash, but have the investments first. If you have the Rolex, you have the BMW, you have that nice stuff, but you don't have the investment portfolio, you don't have the stocks, you don't have the dividends, you don't have the real estate properties, you're building wealth the wrong way. You look like you're rich, but you're not actually rich. And so if you have a $10,000 Rolex, you better have at least $10,000 in assets before you buy that thing in cash. This is why the rule of thumb that I have, especially when it comes to luxuries, is a rule of 5. If you can't buy 5 of them, you can't afford 1 of them. You want to buy that $10,000 Rolex, you better have at least $50,000. That way you have the money to invest, and then you have the money to buy the Rolex. You better have at least $250,000 in wealth before you buy that $50,000 car. Wealth killer number 6 is not eating at home. This includes your coffee, your tea, your lunches from outside, but again, I want you to hear me very carefully here, because I don't believe that Starbucks is the reason why many Americans, many millennials are broke. But you gotta understand what it's costing you at a certain stage of your life. Because the reality is many people are going back to work. And so now, if you have 365 days a year, if 300 of those days you're going out and you're buying a coffee, you're buying Dunkin' Donuts, you're buying a lunch outside, that might be easily, I mean, things are expensive, we'll call it easily $10 a day of just simple expenses. Buying a donut here, buying a bagel here, buying a coffee here, buying a tea there, buying a lunch here, very easily. $10 a day. We're talking about an additional $3,000 a year. Now again, depends on the stage of your life. If you can afford it and it's a nice luxury for you, no problem. Go out and buy the Starbucks, buy the Dunkin' Donuts, buy the lunch, I don't care, buy the sweet green. It does not matter to me because you can afford it. But if you're struggling with money right now, you're struggling paying your bills, you don't have any investments, or you don't have a lot of investments, and then you're spending thousands of dollars a year on stupid stuff that you could just make at home for a fraction of this cost. I mean, if you want to make a tea or a coffee at home, it costs a fraction of what it's going to cost you at Starbucks. You want to make a lunch at home, it's going to cost you a fraction of what you're going to pay at Sweet Green. It's a luxury going out and buying those things, which again, I am not against you buying luxuries, I'm just against you buying them when you can't afford them. When you have the money, go out and do whatever you want with it. But if you're struggling with money, stop spending the money on things that you can't afford to. Wealth killer number 7 is greed. Because when you're struggling with money, what do you want? You want an easy out. You want an easy way to have some extra money, an extra $1,000 a month, an extra $10,000, an extra $50,000, because that could change your life. And so when you're in that situation, you're kind of desperate, you need some extra money, what happens? Well, you get caught up with these simple and easy ways to make a lot of money. Maybe you find some cryptocurrency, maybe you find a meme coin, maybe you find some stock that has this huge upside potential because everybody in the internet is talking about if you buy this thing in 6 months, you'll double your money, you'll 5x your money, you'll 10x your money. And it's very easy to get caught up into that when you need that return, because you need the easy way out. And so you get caught up into these bad investments again and again that you keep getting burned on. And now not only do you not get the growth, but you also lost that money that you needed. And then the second form of this greed is you're the one that gets caught up into the get rich quick schemes, because you're the one that's desperate, because they can prey on your, hey, let me get you out of your financial despair. Let me get you out of this hopelessness. Let me get you out of this tough situation because you're struggling with money. Buy my program for $9.97, and I'm gonna show you how you can follow my 5-step system to $10,000 a month without even working. Sounds nice, right? The problem is most people are not gonna do that. And now you're buying this, spending this money that you need on something that's only making somebody else rich. And I'm not against you buying education online. There's a lot of great education online. I have spent a lot of money, probably upwards of $1 million at this point, of online education and consulting and coaching, but there's a time and place for it, and you gotta understand what it is that you're buying, because there's a lot of crap out there. There are some people that are just selling you a whole bunch of stupid stuff, just trying to get you to give them their money for some crap scam on how you can get rich quick. But then if you're actually learning something, how do you market? How do you do SEO? How do you do email marketing? How do you build a product? I mean, there's a lot of great products out there, but you got to actually know what it is that you're learning how to do. But this is where, when you don't have the money, you don't have the money to spend, you can get caught up in those systems because you just want to get the easy out. And wealth killer number 7.5, this one didn't fit the script, but I wanted to put this in there anyways, which is why I'm calling this 7.5, is a bad partner. A bad wife, a bad husband, a bad girlfriend, a bad boyfriend, somebody who just isn't aligned with you when it comes to your money. Now, this doesn't mean that if they're not aligned with you, you gotta leave them right away, because sometimes you gotta talk to the person. And if they've never been exposed to financial education before, you gotta go through the learning process. I mean, think about the first time you started learning about money management and investing. It was probably difficult and weird for you, but you gotta start having these money conversations. Because the reality is, if you're working to save money, you're working to earn money, and your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife is spending everything, you got a problem. You're never gonna be able to build wealth unless you both are on the same page. And that means you gotta start talking, and you gotta get on the same page. And a bad partner can cost you a lot, because as an attorney, who's not your attorney, what I can also tell you is that divorce is expensive. Now, I've been very fortunate to meet an amazing wife who supports me, but you gotta get on the same page. And you gotta understand how you can get to the same thing together. Because you might have a wife that wants a lot of nice things. I get it. I'm on the same page with you. But you gotta understand, and she's gotta understand how you can get those nice things and afford those nice things. Maybe you gotta make some sacrifices for a little while that we can have more of those nice things, because the problem is sometimes people are thinking emotionally. And when they're thinking emotionally, they can't understand the logic behind it. And so sometimes you gotta understand how to play the game of speaking in those emotions. Okay, you wanna have the nice stuff? I want you to have the nice stuff. I want you to have more of the nice stuff. But in order to have more of the nice stuff, we gotta go through some of these sacrifices today. That way you're working for the same goals instead of just working to spend less and live smaller, because that's not very fun. And you gotta understand why you're doing it. But if you can get on the same page, well, now you can hopefully work together, because if you're not on the same page, it can be extremely difficult. So there you have it, 7.5 wealth killers, which are keeping so many people back from ever building any sort of wealth. And now I want to hear from you. Which wealth killer are you struggling with the most? Let me know down in the comments. Let's assume that you make $5,000 a month. After taxes, you will be left around $3,833 a month. Now, when you get this $3,833 a month, you pay your rent, you pay your mortgage, you pay your groceries, you pay for some nice stuff here and there, and then you have no money to save and invest. So this is what we're gonna do differently.